before we continue with the rest of the video, we could use your help. Click the like button to help spread word about Watchjojo animals, and also be sure to subscribe and click the notification bell so you don't miss our future videos.
When rescuers found this hurt dog abandoned in a box, they spotted a loyal friend watching over him. When rescuers found this dog, he was in a box in a deserted area. He had no home to go to and no owner to look after him. To protect him from the cold, he had what little warmth his crate could offer. Yet he could still boast of at least one thing: a guardian who was watching over him from close by. In Dallas, Texas, there's an area near Doughty's Ferry that's well known to animal rescuers. And while it's only 15 minutes away from the downtown area, it couldn't be more different. Indeed, it's mostly just abandoned woodland. But other things get abandoned there too. That's because in addition to the unwanted vehicles and furniture that are dumped there, the area has become a common spot in which to find abandoned dogs. As a result, volunteers of nonprofit animal rescue group The Underdog Project often scout the area. Among them is one woman named Leslie Suelis. At the time the dog and his friend were discovered, Suelis and her fellow Underdog Project volunteers had been feeding the stray canines in the area for several weeks. In addition, Suelis had left some blanketed crates out for the homeless hounds. And it was inside one of these crates that she found the dog that she'd go on to name Benny. Indeed, it was lucky that Suelis found the 2-year-old Shar-Pei mix, not least because the temperature had dropped to 20 degrees that day. Plus, Benny was so still and quiet in the box that the volunteer might have easily missed him. Upon getting closer though, Suelis realized why the dog was so still. He just didn't have the energy to move. In fact, he'd huddled into the crate for any paltry warmth the crate's blankets could provide. And perhaps he would have stayed here through the freezing night if she hadn't stumbled upon him. I realized he could barely move his body. All he did was raise his head a little. He'd completely given up. Suelis told animal enthusiast news site The Dodo in January 2017. When she inched closer to Benny though, she noticed something even more distressing. It turned out that Benny had not only been abandoned but also wounded, and it looked like a bad injury. Specifically, he had what appeared to be a deep cut on his leg, and if that wasn't bad enough, his head was swollen, and the exposure to the cold had affected him too. In light of his condition then, Suelis wanted to get Benny treatment as soon as possible, and since he was in no condition to resist, it was easy to get a leash around his neck. Sadly though, the poor dog was in no state to move on his own, so the rescuer carried him to her car instead. As Suelis picked him up, however, something else caught her eye, and it would seem to her that Benny hadn't been quite as alone as she thought. A chocolate-covered Labrador, estimated to be only about a year old, had been keeping an eye on him the whole time. In fact, the lab, whom Suelis named Betty, looked like she was acting as Benny's guardian. She watched everything from afar, not leaving the area, just staring at her friend, Suelis explained to the Dodo. Naturally then, she would have to come back for Benny's loyal companion. But the lab would have to wait. Benny badly needed medical attention, so she rushed the freezing wounded dog to an emergency animal clinic, where the vets identified the extent of the creature's injury. Sadly though, they would have bad news. The laceration in his leg was severe enough to cause a bone infection. Meanwhile, volunteers at the Underdog Project returned for Benny's friend. Thankfully, Betty was still there, waiting where they'd left her. And without difficulty, they managed to rescue her too. Still, the humans' involvement wouldn't end there. For one, they'd need to reach out to help find the dog's loving homes. So the volunteers duly sent an SOS to Rescue Dogs Rock NYC. The group is renowned for helping the most desperate cases, and fortunately was happy to take both Benny and Betty under their wings. "We don't leave dogs behind, ever," the charity aptly says on its Facebook page. Yet at least one of the dogs was in bad shape. Benny is on an IV and he's completely dehydrated, weak and starving, Rescue Dogs explained in a January 2017 Facebook post. X-rays were taken of Benny's leg and chest. His head is very swollen and the medical staff are continuing to run tests to figure out why. Our hearts break thinking about Benny day after day, night after night in the freezing cold, in pain, living in this box, Rescue Dogs added on their Facebook. And though vets surgically closed and cleaned Benny's wounds, he's still on medication for the pain and the swelling of his head. Furthermore, Rescue Dogs was put in position of having to appeal for financial assistance to help with Benny's care. Just one night of emergency treatment, for example, cost nearly $2,300. And the poor pooch still faced a long road to recovery. So the costs were likely to be far greater in the long run. Even despite his ordeal, though, the animal's spirits couldn't be squashed. Benny is still friendly, loving, and loves toys, Suelis explained to the dodo. He doesn't mind being touched and cleaned up. He's a regular dog. As for Betty, rescue dogs describe the young pooch as sweet and gentle. We plan to bring Benny and Betty up to New York as soon as they're able to travel so they can be adopted, Rescue Dogs co-founder Stacy Silverstein added to the dodo. The Rescue Dogs Facebook also explained, "We vow to give Betty the life she was always meant to have, one where she'll be cherished and a beloved family member." Still, it's all thanks to Leslie Suelis that the dogs are quite literally out of the woods now. And after the hardships they've been through, Benny and Betty both deserve to have loving homes. Thankfully, at least, Rescue Dogs Rock New York City will do all it can to see that they get them. Please don't forget to share this video with your friends below.
Please do not forget to subscribe and activate the bell to receive everything that is new.